Michelle and Kelly.
Happening,
I'm
David.
I am again really really excited, probably the most excited I've been for any interview because today we've got the wonderful, the fabulous Mr. John Lindo.
Woo, exactly. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. And I am super excited to be here. And you all look fabulous. And I'm excited to do this. Even though it's early on Sunday morning, I'd get up for nobody else other than Kelly. So here I am.
So John, I want to start off by telling you a little story.
Okay.
A number of years back, I was relatively new to the dance world. I knew nothing about West Coast swing, never heard of John Lindo, and someone had told me about this weekend event. It was a Stardust weekend, and I'd gone to that. My wife and I were at a evening performance where they had a few professional couples giving a performance. And then the MC announces that, oh, we're going to have this fellow John Lindo come out and do an improvised number with his partner. I think it was Jessica Cox. And you walked out, and honestly, I thought, uh-oh. Because you have a very different image than your typical dancer. And my heart went out to this poor guy. And I'm honestly, I thought, am I about to witness a train wreck? And, and you started
Should
dancing.
I run? Should I run now?
You started dancing, and I swear I almost fell out of my chair. It was like, oh my God, this guy is incredible. Everyone at that event knew. I think I was the only person who did not know who you were. And everyone says, oh yeah, and his classes are incredible. I remember going to one of your classes, and it was packed. Like there was like no space on the floor. It was just incredible. I went home. I started like looking on YouTube, and I was completely blown away.
That's
What
awesome.
a fabulous impression, and the shock value took me over the top. And I think, in some sense, it was so inspiring because, as an amateur dancer, a dance enthusiast, but an amateur dancer, there's a lot of really top level people, such as yourself, that you look at and you think, yeah, that's awesome. I could never aspire to be that, you think. But then when you see someone who looks more like a regular Joe, right? In all due respect, right?
Yeah.
And you go, wow,
I can.
I am now even more inspired because you can kind of see that, yeah, I don't have to be the guy who looks like they've grown up in the gym from age
Right.
4,
Right.
right?
Or
Right.
been in the
Or been
Russian.
dancing, with
Right.
the European parents since they were
Exactly.
3 months
Yes.
old. Like
Yeah,
this
with the
is part
Russian
of
mother
what
with the
happens
stick.
in the dance world, right? We end up getting exposed to what is created in a little bit of that ballroom platform. And it is the most wonderful part of it because it really gives people the real side of what this is all about, and makes them feel so much more inspired to be able to feel it's attainable, which is
Yeah.
where it comes in my world of letting people see that sort of real side of it. So I'm sure
Yeah.
that's been a constant for you, eh, John? Like just
It,
people talking about it. And
it has. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't look like Derek Huff, right? I don't have the body of, of an goddess. I mean, although I do think I'm my own a goddess, but that's just me. You know? I'm very comfortable in my skin. I am who I am. Body image is something that I talk to people constantly. I've had several people throughout my career, reach out to me because they were bigger or they are bigger and they never thought that they could dance. And then they saw my video and they're like, if he could do it, I can do it. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Right. And so, yeah, it's been a constant thing that comes up most of the time when I walk into a room where people do not know me. David, just like yourself and everybody else, they think you dance, and I'm like, and sometimes I'll play the card and I'm like, oh, I have no idea how to dance. I'm like, I've never this is my first
and then
time.
what?
Wish me luck. Here I go. And then I'll get out there with Jessica and we just dance, right? And I have the pleasure of dancing with an amazing partner, right? She is amazing and she's been on this journey with me, and I wish no one else would, because she she's just been phenomenal. And but yeah, Michelle, there's been several times where, and when I first started, I had the luxury of having really good friends in the community who welcomed me. But, there was also people, I don't want to say they didn't welcome me, but they were just like, you're not the image we're looking for.
Yeah, that resistance lives everywhere, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember the first time maybe not the first time, but maybe several competitions into when I was competing, I was talking to a judge, and back then you kind of, you went into the judge, because in our community, we've always listed our judges, right? We know who they are, their name shows up. I know in some communities they don't. And so I went up to this judge just to ask for feedback. And, she told me, she said, you're a great dancer, just you're fat and I can't put you first, because that goes against everything that I think a dancer should be. You don't exude the image of a dancer. And I very nicely turned around and said, thank you for your feedback. I said, I'm not fat, I'm plump, and I love my body. And, thanks for your feedback. And that's it. And, that's her opinion. She gets to have it. Now, granted, I drew her in a contest. When I got her in close position, I whispered in her ear and I said, hang on, because Fatso's going to take you for a ride. We won first place. And when we went up to accept the money, I didn't hug her. I took my money and went away. And I looked at her and I gave her a look and I said, here's what fat will get you, lady. And to this day, she still comes up to me and apologizes. And I'm like, look, it's what you want to do, right? It's people, it's just a body image thing. But yeah, if you're comfortable in your own skin, I think you can accomplish anything, right? Anything.
Well, that's just it. I think that part of the incredible joy of watching you dance, John, has got nothing to do with anything other than you have this infectious joy that is just contagious. And it's so wonderful. Like, I will be sitting watching Jack and Jill's forever with my coffee, and I can't sit still because I just want to dance with you. And it's just that powerful. I literally just am like, if I could, I would dance with John. If I could, maybe one day I'll be so lucky.
Yeah, and it's just, people have said to me, you constantly smile when you're dancing. Yes. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, is that fake? And I'm like, no. I'm like, listen, when I stop smiling, I'm going to stop dancing. Yeah. Because it's what I do. I love it. I enjoy it. The music comes on and I can't help it. And so, yeah, I love it, right? And I enjoy it. And so when I stop enjoying it, I'll go take up golf or go take up something else, right? But for now, I'm going to keep doing it. But yeah, I do love it. And it does come through, which is a good talent for me. So.
And it's authentic. That's part of what the joy is,
thank
right?
you. Yes.
So I can't help it. I know we're all probably jumping, but part of what
I got it.
I know we're all going to be like, no, it's my turn. Part of what I would love to be able to share is, of course, our audience, most of us know that they're going to know who you are, John. But let's pretend there's some viewers that have no idea. And can you give us a little bit of your story? Like, how did this whole world start for you, this dance world and your life, and what makes you so awesome? And John, tell us your story.
Well, in a little village in Portugal. No.
I'm intrigued already.
So most people don't know, but I am Portuguese.
Okay.
I was born in Portugal in the Azores. There's 9 islands like the Hawaiian Islands. We came here when I was very young. My parents came here and brought us over. But even when I was a little kid, we, dancing is part of our culture, right? We danced a little bit. And then of course, as I got here and got into junior high and got into high school, no dancing, right? Because boys didn't dance. So, I played football, I played volleyball. And so throughout the years, I lived in Providence, Rhode Island. That's where my family took residence in when we came here from Portugal. And we were, a bunch of coworkers and I were thirsty, and we thought about going out for a drink. And this was in late 90s. Now I'm kind of giving you my age. And it was the hype of the country and western, when country and western was huge. And the new bar had just opened up across the street called Desperados. And so they're like, hey, let's go out for happy hour. It's Friday night. Let's go for happy hour. So we all went out. We went for some drinks, and they're having lessons down in what we call the pit, because it was like a 3-level bar, and you had to walk down, 3 stairs, then a platform, another 3 stairs, and then the dance floor. And so they were having dance lessons in the pit, and they must have needed some extra leaders because there was lots of women and not enough men. And so I remember the dance teacher, Debbie Paulus, who to this day is kind of responsible for creating this monster, I have to say, her and my friend Ted. Ted literally dragged me to the bar because I didn't want to go. I was thought I was going home. He's like, come on, let's go. And we get there, we're drinking, and Debbie's like, hey, and she points to the crowd. There must have been about like 6 of us. She's like, why don't you guys come down here? We just need some help. We need some bodies. And so, after a couple of beers in, we're like, yeah, we can do this, right? Like, we got this. So, yeah.
Liquid courage, it'll get you every time.
Oh my God, liquid courage. So she was teaching 2-step, her and her husband were teaching 2-step. I got the person in close position. I'm thinking I'm ready. I'm thinking I'm like the world champion. Let's go. She starts to show us, and I'm like, come on, I'm ready for the advanced class. I was the worst person in the class. Like, I'm stepping on people's feet. I'm crushing into everybody. I'm going backwards instead of forwards. So there's like this drive. But anyway, so I started in a country bar, and then from there, like pretty much every Friday just became a thing. We joined in the lessons. Then they started also doing some line dancing, which was kind of fun because you didn't need to have a partner. I didn't have to worry about injuring anybody. So started in a bar, did some country and western dancing, did some line dancing, and then Debbie had an event in Rhode Island, and it was a country and western event, and that's the first time I saw West Coast swing. And there was a couple doing a dance, and I turned around to my friend. I'm like, "What are they doing?" They're like, "That's called West Coast swing." And I was like, I'm like, "That's what I want to do." Now, granted, I love 2-step. Like, if a 2-step comes on, I'm on that dance floor. Like, you cannot get me not on that dance floor. It is still my first dance that I love because it's the first dance that I learned. But of course, West Coast is my passion. So, and then I saw West Coast. I learned it. Very funny story though. When I first took my very first West Coast swing private, I left the private with my friend Anne Marie, who had taken the lesson with me. And I said to her, and I said, I hate this dance. I hate this dance. I don't want to do it. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of, you got to follow this. No, I don't want this dance. I hate it. And I didn't do West Coast for like a couple of months because the lesson was, not that the lesson was bad. It was just for me, I thought I was going to be able to pick it up really quickly. Like I did 2-step. And I didn't because it was hard to dance. There's a lot more rules. What do you mean there's a 6 count and an 8 count? And I got to transition between what? Like, I can't just stop and then continue going around again like I do in 2-step. Like when I messed up in 2-step, I get off the slot, I reset, and I go back into the slot. In West Coast swing, there was none of that. So I hated West Coast. And then from there, I grew to love it, started taking lessons. And then I actually moved from Rhode Island to Dallas, Texas. My company transferred me. I used to work for AT&T. They transferred me to Dallas, Texas, which was great because I already knew how to 2-step. So I was already all set. So I got there, got involved with the dance scene, took more West Coast lessons, started taking lessons from Ramiro Gonzalez and Barry Jones. And then I went to this event and I met John Festa, who was from New York, and he was telling me about a dance that he had. And I knew I was getting transferred to New Jersey from Dallas. And so when I got to New Jersey, I settled myself, and then I started going to John's dances at the North River Bar, which is kind of like this little hub bar that created the most incredible dances. Like, so, Deborah Seke came out of there, Blake Hobby came out of there, John Festa, of course, himself, Angel Figueroa used to go there all the time. And then once a month, the local studio, Dance Manhattan, used to bring in teachers. So we would get Kyle Red, we would get Marianne Nunes, we would get Beata Howe, we would get Robert Cordoba. All these amazing teachers would come in once a month to teach at the studio, and they would go out every Tuesday and dance. So we got to like see the stars and dance with them. And it was like this little bar in the corner of nowhere every Tuesday night, but it created such an amazing community in New York. And so that's how I got to West Coast. And then from there, I started to compete and started to, win, which was nice. And climbing.
despite your body image, right? You were
Despite my
winning.
body, yeah. Despite
Okay.
my body image, even though that judge said I would probably never win, never place, probably should go take up something else other than dancing.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay. But I was making my dance partners happy. Every time I danced with somebody, they walked off the floor happy, and that was my main job. My main job was to not screw up, not step on anybody, and make sure that whoever I danced with walked off the floor saying that was a good dance, right? I had a good time. And that's all I wanted to do. Like, I didn't care about winning, or I didn't care about, because so much that I enjoyed social dancing that I would stay out social dancing late until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And then sometimes the competitions would start and I would miss them because I would be sleeping in. Because I had more fun social dancing, because that's what I was there for. I wanted to social dance. Competition was on, the back burner until my friends, we were at an event, and it was this pretty big event, and they had the novice contest, kind of like newcomer novice, and they signed me up without telling me. And so the MC is calling my name, and I looked at my friends. I'm like, he must be meaning somebody else, because I did not sign up for this contest. And my friend Gail looks at me and she goes, yeah, you did. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure. Like, I know I was a little drunk last night, but I know I didn't sign up this morning. I mean, I know I didn't sign up. They're like, no, you did. We did. We signed you up. And I was like, what? And I'm like, no, because I'm about to puke right now, because I'd never competed before. And so I'm like, no, I'm scratching or whatever it is. And unfortunately for me, the contest was even. So if I scratched, they would have had 2 heats because it was uneven. And so they were like, no, Mr. Lindo, we really need you to show up. Even if, you suck, you got to get on the floor. And so the MC called me one more time. My friends pointed to me at the table. He came and grabbed me. I danced, won. And so I looked at my friend and said, okay, maybe I'll try this another time. And that was my story on the competition dance floor.
I gotta say, first of all, that's awesome. I didn't realize. I thought you've been dancing for a lot longer than the late '90s, because you're so good at it, and you're already. I started West Coast like early 2000s or something like that, and you were already entrenched in the scene. Like, I was already like, oh yeah, he's one of the people to know, right? So that's interesting to know. But I will say, I love the story you just told, because you're always so good about pushing people in the best way, uplifting them, getting them go out there, take a chance, do this, and to hear that you had to get pushed out on the floor yourself. That's awesome.
Well, because I was at the event with friends, having a good time, taking workshops, doing social dancing. The competition part of it was fun to watch. Like, I loved watching all the routines and the Jack and Jills, but I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not interested in that. At least I didn't think I was, until my friend Gail and a bunch of other friends signed me up without letting me know. And kind of, I always say to them, they forced me to do this, but in the end, it turned out to be a good career move for me.
Absolutely.
And I also think for me, as I started to dance and kind of like be more in what they call a spotlight format. So in West Coast Swing, we have prelims, which is everybody's heated, and then we do like kind of spotlights. That people were like, wow, that guy is, that's a big dude. I remember one time this lady came up to me, and she was the sweetest thing. And she goes, I don't mean this, no disrespect. She goes, but do you have wings on your feet? And I'm like, no, I don't have wings on my feet. She goes, because you move like a feather, and for a big guy, how do you do that? And I was like, and I remember I turned to her and I said, big? Who's big? I'm big? I'm like, I'm big? I'm like, and she looks at me like, I was joking with her, but she thought I was literally, she was like, did I just say something to this man that he didn't know? And I'm like, who's big? Like, what do you mean big? Big like what? Big ears? But she goes, well, you're a big guy. I'm like, I am? I'm like, and then of course, I said, of course, I know I'm a big guy. I said, but yeah, I mean, and it's funny because when my family watches me dance, my family have, they all have 2 left feet, and I make fun of them all the time. So nobody in my family dances. I think the only person I remember dancing as a young kid was my uncle. But yeah, my mom and dad have no rhythm. My sister has no rhythm, and my brother can't even walk. Right? I mean, he can walk, but he can't
The look on Michelle's face.
I know. I'm like, wow.
I mean, he can walk, but like,
Sensitivity,
you know,
John.
but you know, like he'll go out there and he'll do like this, you know, that's what he does. And I love it, you know, but yeah, nobody in my family. So I always tell my mother, cause you know, whenever sometimes we watch videos together, cause my mother, you know, being a Portuguese mother, she's built this little shrine of like me. And, you know, every trophy I get, I have to send it to her because, you know, I can't keep the trophy. She's got to keep it in the house. So when friends come over, she can show her friends, this is my son. So she has a little shrine for me. So every time we, you know, we watch videos together, I always go to her and I go, Mom, are you sure the milkman was not involved somehow? I mean, somehow, how did I get this rhythm?
Where did this rhythm come from?
Where did this rhythm come from?
How
But,
did
you
we
know,
help
she's
a lot?
funny, you know, but I think, but, you know, as a little boy, I remember being home and, you know, on Saturday mornings when my mother would clean the house, and we would help out, even though we were making it worse for her. But, you know, she just let us do it. She always had Portuguese music going on. And so we always, like, music was always a part of my life. So I've always enjoyed different kinds of music, different cultures of music. And so I think for me, that's why I love dancing, because of the music, right? And I love West Coast Swing because it incorporates every kind of dance, right? Every kind of music. It incorporates R&B and jazz and rock and pop and, you know, even, you know, acoustic and electrical. So I love that part of it. So yeah, but so that's a little bit of story of where I came from. And yeah, so early 90s, Kelly, is when I, you know, well, my very first lesson was in 1992. I remember that, right? Because it was when the Desperados had opened and I went to it. So yeah, I was in the start of the country western crazy scene.
Well, I think
David, we haven't let you get a word in edgewise. I'm sure
That's
you
right.
David. Say something.
Well, I was going to say one of the things that I think sets you apart from many professional dancers, while this is clearly your career, you ended up in this career because you first established this love and passion for what you do versus someone who was groomed for it from the age where they couldn't make that decision for themselves, right? And so you see some wonderful dancers that they'll be at an event and maybe they'll do the performance and they do their thing and it's like, okay, I'm done. I've earned the paycheck for the night and it's time to go home. And you're there like you're ready to groove and get it on and that's, as you were describing earlier, the reason you most want to be there, to the extent that you might even like sleep through the competition because you were just having so much more fun social dancing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the social aspect of it is what I loved about the whole country and western thing, where, you know, I went to the bar with my friends, got to have a few drinks, and got to dance. That was awesome, right? And that's why I never really thought about competition. But even when I transitioned over to the West Coast swing world, it was all about staying up late nights. I mean, I remember my friends and I, we would take naps during the afternoon. Like we would finish a workshop, we'd go take a nap. So then we could stay up until 5, 6 o'clock in the morning dancing, and then go to breakfast. And then we established the breakfast club. So we would stay up until the restaurant opened so we could go to breakfast and then go to sleep and then get up and take workshops again. And yeah, and it's funny because I you know, all due respect and love to some of my peers, I have been where, you know, I'll get texts for some of them who, you know, in the text, they'll say, hey, we're in the room watching a movie. Do you want to come out and hang? And I'm like, we're at a dance event. Why would I want to be in a room watching a movie? Like, I want to be downstairs dancing, right? But I get that because a lot of them, you know, did not come into this from a social aspect, right? They started off young, or they started off where they meant this was going to be their profession. For me, I had a corporate job, which I loved. I loved working for AT&T. I worked for them for 17 years. I traveled a lot with my job because I was a trainer for them. So I was used to being on a plane, living off of a plane. And for me, you know, the weekends were mine, where I got to hang out and go out and go to events with my friends and party with them, and then get up in the morning and go and show up for work. And, you know, it was great that I would place in a contest. That's awesome, right? But come Monday morning at, you know, 10 p.m. at the staff meeting, if my report wasn't done, my boss didn't care that I won a dance contest. Yep. He wanted the report done. And if it's not done, you know, your ass is on the line. So I had a different perspective where I had a life where I enjoyed my weekends, but then during the week I had to be working Monday through Friday, work, and I had to be accountable. for, you know, people and groups and a budget. And so for me, it was different. It was actually funny because when I started to think about transitioning to maybe make this my full-time career, I approached my dad. And, you know, like all fathers, I'm sure nobody wants to hear from a son to say, I'm going to become a dance teacher, Dad. You know, live in a corporate job that paid me very well. And I said to my dad, I think I want to make this my profession. And my dad was like, all right. He's like, let's make a deal. He goes, for 2 years, let's give ourselves a 2-year window.
Mhm.
You'll live off of the salary that you make as a teacher, and you don't touch your AT&T salary, right? And I had my check go into some bank account or some bank in Dallas that I didn't, you know, have to have access to. Now, several days, and I, you know, thank my parents for this. Several days, you know, I went home and, you know, checked in on my parents because I was there to eat, because there was no food in my house because I wasn't making a lot of money as a dance teacher. But, you know, at the end of the 2 years, I was able to say, look, I think I can make this go and give it a go. And so AT&T came out with a package, an early retirement. I qualified for it. I took it. And then I transitioned to being, but I didn't do that for like, I mean, you know, and, you know, my agreement with my dad was that during those 2 years, if I had to borrow money from anybody, if I had to go into debt, then this was not the career for me. And so, yeah. And so luckily I listened to him, and at the end of the 2 years, I showed him my budgets and my bank account, and he was like, okay, he's like, I think you can do this. So let's go, you know, go. And so that blessing gave me the courage to kind of move forward. But yeah, David, you're right. It's a total different environment when you're brought up in this environment, and this is what you have to do, right? This is what you have to create. So
You're here by choice.
Yeah. I get that. If you've just done a performance, you've collected your check, and, you know, you also got to be careful about not going out and getting injured, right? Social dancing, somebody could maybe just pull your leg or something, or your arm. So I get that there's also injuries, and you have to be careful about that.
Right.
So yeah, so for me, I have a different, you know, set of mind. It's also the same reason why I have never been late for a workshop. I have never been late to a lesson, because my first day on the job at AT&T, I was supposed to start at 8:00, and so I showed up at 7:50. Like, I got 10 minutes. I'm like, this is cool. And, you know, my boss comes to me and says, you're here 10 minutes early. This is not good enough. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you got to get in the building. You got to get in the elevator. You got to take off your coat. You got to sit at your desk, log into your computer, and you got to start taking the phone calls at 8:00, not 8:05. And I was like, oh, I mean, I got to show up early to be on time. So for me, I'm always like making sure that I'm never late to a workshop, because it's my biggest fear. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, to me, that just epitomizes what this is all about in the joy of you, John. And it is about the difference between, as much as we can appreciate and respect the groomed dancers in our world, be it ballroom, Latin swing, whatever category you're in, there is a groomed sort of view of people that have been trained and are very, that probably covers it enough. And then we have the authentic side, right? Where there's a little bit more genuity in the roots of where you come from. And that makes a really big difference on the way that we connect as an audience, right? To that. So whether it's inspiration, whether it's students that I encourage to watch different people, and I'm like, if you're at a competition or if you're at a social and you have a sea of people on the dance floor, who are you drawn to? Right. Are you drawn to the people that are prim and proper and doing things technically sound? Or are you drawn to the person that has the most wonderful smile and is enjoying what they're doing? And it really is so fascinating to be, just there to communicate that to people and be like, who are you going to watch? What's going to captivate you? And that is what you want to encourage people, because, we want people to choose an activity as adults by choice and be inspired, right? And so that's part of the fun is, is this your it for so many people, which is really fun to share, right? That's the best part.
Yeah, and I have to say, part of it is also just, it's this word that exists that I think some professionals don't think about, but just being nice, right? Just being human, like just saying hi to people. Like I've had, I'll walk in an elevator, and I'm not going to walk in an elevator and turn around and not say hi to anybody. right? Even if I don't know you, I'm going to say, hey, how are you? Are you having a good time? Are you having a, and I may make a funny joke like, why weren't you on my workshop, right? Where I've had students who come up to me who there are certain professionals that are with me that when they're with me, they'll say hi to them. But then if they're walking down a hallway and they just said hi to me like 10 minutes ago with this professional, and so they're walking down the hallway and they see the same professional and they smile and the professional just doesn't even pretend that they exist, right? They just keep walking by.
Oh yeah,
I've also,
politics.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, my parents was just like, if you want people to be nice to you, you got to be nice to them. And I'm like, I get this, right? Luckily, I'm a people person. I like people. I've had several friends in my profession, and I say this because Kelly knows what this means. Because they think we're friends. We're not friends. We're just colleagues, right?
Yeah.
Like we're colleagues.
Yeah.
And they don't like people. And I'm like, you're in the wrong profession.
Yeah.
You should not be teaching groups of people and interacting and taking money from them if you don't like people.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
go do data entry. Go work with a computer or something. One time I had a friend of mine who was walking down the hallway and he had his headset on, and all of a sudden he and I'm thinking he's busy listening to his choreography or whatever, and he looks at me and goes, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, I thought you. He's like, oh no, this is just for show. He goes, it's not on. He goes, I don't want people talking to me. And I'm like, I'm like, okay. I'm like, so why are you out of your room and why are you walking around? Like, if you don't want people to talk to you, stay in your room, watch TV, go down to do your performance, and then go back up. But yeah, it's funny. It's fun. Yeah, it's just that word being nice. And yeah, and there is this thing about certain people that are groomed to be, they do their performances, they get in there, they get in, they get out. And then there's other people that, love to hang out and chit chat and talk. And I happen to be one of those people. And, several people are like Kelly. Sometimes you can't get him to shut up, but that's great because that's just who he is. But yeah, you're right, Michelle. It's just, it's a different breed. And I love that there's those two styles, right? I love that because I absolutely, for me, have a lot of respect for the top notch, like the first time I met Michelle and David, they used to be the world ballroom champions. They won Blackpool like several times. Is that who they are? I think it's Michelle. I met them at an event in Europe. And I was expecting like snobs. I was, because they are, the 5-time Blackpool world Latin champions, right? So I'm expecting them to be snobs. And we sat at their table because it was kind of like all the staff sitting together. And they were the nicest people. The nicest people. And like I went out and danced West Coast with her. And I was just, for me, that was like an eye opener. I'm like, wow, I shouldn't judge a book by its cover just because they're the world champions, didn't necessarily mean. But, they were also there for one night. They did their 5 numbers, and then they were getting on a plane to fly to Hong Kong to do another 5 numbers the next night, right? So I get that they couldn't hang out and dance all night because they got to get on a plane and go do another show, right?
And we need it all, right? It's
yes,
it's what makes up the dance world. We need the professionals that do that, and then we need the other side of it.
Yep. 100%.
Even on a social side, I like the connection that I'm having for a moment. I'll be selfish is, as I teach, and whether it's groups or privates or whatever, people will come in with that resistance and they're like, oh, but I'm really inspired. I want to learn this dance. And then I'll go over some of those, fundamental basics at the beginning. Right. And then you get that question. Don't you get tired of, doing the same thing over and over? And I just am like, are you kidding me? I love this because I get to watch your journey and the beginning of this, and I get to be a part of letting you start that. And I don't ever get bored of, all of those great nuances that happen in the beginning that, and because I love what I do, it's the same thing I can share with you, John, that if I didn't love that, and if I didn't like being a part of that process, it would be awful. And I would be one of those sort of snobby, I'm here for whatever, but no, I'm here because this is something I want to be part of whoever's life wants to be in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, I mean, there are people that, just like people get up and go to work, they love their job, and people get up and go to work and just do their job. They just get it done. Where,
Yeah.
you know, like when I watch somebody like Kelly teach, right? There's this passion about him that his students are, even though they're deathly afraid of him, they're absolutely, you know, there's this joy that he brings that, you know, he could probably be really mean to you, but he's sweet. So he's going to take you through that journey, but he wants you to get it right. And so, yeah, I mean, I think like yourself, you've been, you know, you've had your student for 18 years, right? There's got to be a passion that you love to have, right, Michelle? You got to want to do it. Otherwise, it's just a job and you just do it. And, you know, my grandmother told me one thing one time, right? She said, you get one life. She goes, I'm not telling you to screw it up. She goes, I'm not going to tell you don't screw it up. I'm going to tell you, you get one life. So enjoy what you do. Because I remember, I think I was talking to her about like, I just joined the sport and I didn't like it. And she goes, well, then quit. And I'm like, yeah, but people want me. And she goes, who cares what people want? She goes, honey, you get one life. She goes, and this is it. So do what you want to do. Enjoy it. She goes, not like you're going to get to the pearly gates, knock on the door and say, I'd like a second chance. Because, you know, I didn't like that one. So give me another one. No. So yeah. I mean, so, you know, you've been teaching for 18 years. You know what it's like. You get that inspiration from students. And that's what I said. You know, I've said to people this all the time. The day I don't smile during a lesson or I don't feel that joy during a competition, I'll go do something else, right? I love bowling. I'll go bowl, right? I like bowling. That's my second passion. I'll go bowling, right? I'll take up bowling, you know, or I'll go take up golf or painting or something else that's going to bring joy to my life. But I think dancing will always be there because it's what, you know, I love it. But, you know, never say never. Jessica always says, never say never. I'm like, okay.
I cannot imagine, John, you without dancing. But
Me neither, David.
To that point, a couple of our listeners have submitted questions that they would like us to ask you. And one is, given that it's so clear you have so much joy around dance and what you do, and you can tell it's genuine, how are you getting by during this time with no social dancing? Like, how are you surviving right now?
Yeah. It's tough. And I'll tell you, the first month it was fun because it was like, I'm on vacation. Like I get a break. I don't have to get on a plane. I don't have to teach lessons. I don't have to, like, my mind was just like, I can do, like, just be on vacation.
Yep.
And it was fun. And then after the second week or the third week, panic kind of settled in because I was just like, you know, I like people. I like talking to people. What do you mean I can't go out of my house and I can't, you know, talk to my friends or hug them or do that? And so it you know, I had to do a lot of self-calming. So I didn't do any yoga, Michelle, but I did do a lot of meditation. Like, you know, I downloaded some meditation apps. And then I also said, you know what? I'm going to just take this and kind of run with it. So I started to create certain groups that I meet. So I have Zoom meetings with my friends. I mean, Zoom, thank God that it came out. And just like with my family, you know, I called my parents and I said, look, I know we can't see each other, but we're going to Zoom and we're going to kind of just keep in touch. And for me, it's been more about reaching out to my friends and to my students to check in, even if it's just a quick text to say, hey, how's it going? How's your day going? Just because I know people are lonely, right? Mm-hmm. People are lonely, they're home alone. But it's definitely been a mind shift because, you know, I would see somebody at an event and then I'd be like, all right, I'll see you in 2 weeks, right? And in 2 weeks, I would see them at that other event. And now, since March, I have not seen anybody other than my roommate.
Yeah.
Other than my roommate. And, you know, a few friends that we've had, maybe 1 or 2 friends who came over the house, you know, just to kind of social distance and sit outside, just to kind of chat. Everything has been through Zoom. Everything's been, you know, Zooming, chatting, FaceTime, just kind of, you know, Jessica's pregnant. We had her baby shower on Zoom, right? Oh. Because, you know, we were supposed to have it at an event, you know, at Trilogy, but of course that didn't happen. So yeah, you have to adapt. So for me, at first it was great. I was like, yeah, I'm like, I love this. It's a vacation. Then panic set in. I'm like, oh my God, like what am I doing? Like, I don't talk to anybody. I don't see anybody. And then third was, okay, this is the way it is. Let's just adapt to it and make the best that we can. Yeah. And it's been I mean, I don't want to say it's been great, but it's definitely been okay, right? I look forward to getting back and, hugging people and, and talking to people because I'm a social person. I like to do that.
Yeah.
But it's also been a good experience to kind of just also work on myself, right? I've read some more. I've learned how to, breathe, calm down. I have a group of friends that we were all actually, we were Zooming and we were talking about like just how like big we were getting. We're like, my God, like we're just eating. And so one of them was like, we should do like an exercise class every day together. And I'm like, let's do it. So like every day, Monday through Friday at 7:00, we all jump on a Zoom. Whoever can jumps on there. And we pick out an exercise class off of YouTube and we do our workouts, right?
Awesome.
Just to kind of check in with each other and also just to kind of keep ourselves motivated. There's also been, because I love to DJ. I don't know if that's another part, Michelle, that I'm sure people might know or not know. I also travel. Sometimes I get hired as a teacher. Sometimes I get hired as a teacher and a DJ. And so I've put together a group of DJs just because we don't play now for anybody.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's hard for us and the music that we picked out in April is not necessarily going to be ready whenever we come back, right? It's going to be out of style. It's not going to be new.
Yeah.
So I put together a group of DJs and I said, hey, let's meet monthly. Let's have a DJ meeting. You bring 5 songs, you bring 5 songs. We all listen to music and that's how we're sharing music with each other. So just kind of making sure that we check in, David, I think has been really great for me and for some other people. And really when I first reached out to some peers, it was eye-opening how people were like, no one's checking in with me, John. Like no one, no one's calling me. No one's saying, checking in how I'm doing. And I'm like, wow. So yeah, it's that kind of, making sure that we're all in the same industry and, some of us are friends. Some of us are true friends.
I love your quotes. Love them.
And some of us are true friends. And, and it's just touching bases to make sure that everybody's okay. Because it does get lonely, right? Just being home and especially if you don't have a partner or a wife or a husband who you can dance with at home. Like I recently did a Zoom call for the Capital Swing Dancers in Sacramento, California. They brought me in, I taught a lesson, I DJ'd, and I would say 90% of the people on the screen were home alone, just dancing by themselves, right? Maybe only 1 or 2 had a partner with them. Everybody else was home alone. And so, we did a little bit of line dancing and people just got up and danced by themselves. No, we're not used to dancing by ourselves, right? We're used to having somebody at the other end. So for some people,
it's been a lot of disconnect with this COVID craziness that has sort of rippled through everyone. And you're right. I think a lot of people have gone through phases just as you have, John. At first, it was like, woohoo, built-in vacation. What's going on here? This is great. And that was enjoyable at first. And then there was panic for everyone. Yeah. And then there's been this phenomenal, innovative side of people being really creative and thinking, okay, well, I have to work with these new rules of our world and what can I do to make it successful? And so there's been tons of great new innovative ideas on businesses and how can we dance with you even though you're home alone and disconnected.
Right, absolutely. Well, it was funny because I had I was on the call and I said, okay, everybody get up, we're going to move. And one lady was sitting down. And so I called her by her name because I happened to know her. And I'm like, hey, why aren't you getting up and dancing with us? And she's like, well, I don't want to embarrass myself. And I'm like, well, then turn off your camera.
Right.
She's like, oh, I can do that? I'm like, yes. I'm like, turn off your camera, just as long as you're getting up and dancing with us.
Yeah.
And so, so it's just, there's a lot of new things coming out. But definitely it's been kind of like you said, phases for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, John, just to let everyone know, to stay on track, and I know David has more questions. You had mentioned before we started recording, how often were you traveling so that way the listeners know how much of a change you going from your schedule to nothing was? Because it was a huge change. Yeah.
So I traveled 46 weekends a year. And in the month of July, August, those 2 months, I spent in Europe the entire time traveling Europe, just doing events in Europe where I would go from one event to the next, and just in between the weekends, I would do special workshops at special like little villages. So yeah, 46 weekends a year. And July and August, I was going out of the country the entire time, traveling in Europe. And so, yeah, so that's been a huge change because, you know, I was pretty much, I would come home on a Monday morning. I would be home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday morning, I'd get on a plane and fly someplace else. And then sometimes
busy.
and then sometimes I would, like if I was gonna go to an event out in California, I would go to California, and then during the week I would go to Colorado, work in Colorado at a studio, and then go back to California for the next weekend. So sometimes I didn't even make it home. So yeah, it's been a huge, I mean, it's funny because when my roommate and I, you know, we've known each other for a long time, even before we started kind of like dancing. And he's funny because he's like, you know, he's like, I thought I would like having a roommate because you were never around, but now you're around all the time. I don't know about this. And I'm like, I feel the same way. I'm like, I don't know. No, luckily we live in a big enough space that, you know, we can do. But I've talked to friends who live in New York and, you know, a 400 square foot apartment, you know, and, you know, and they have a partner, and it's like, oh boy, the two of you are like right on top of each other and you can't go out. And so it's been hard for some people.
So what did that transition look like? Obviously, you transitioned from working for AT&T, and you were making initially kind of like a side income and just enjoying yourself, to moving away from AT&T. But I'm guessing like day one, you weren't on anything like that kind of a schedule or in that level of demand. So how did you go from there to traveling 48 weeks a year?
Well, I'll tell you, David. Day one of, I think it was on a Wednesday. I signed my paperwork. I said goodbye to my coworkers. They had a party. I left. Thursday morning, I woke up in sheer shitless panic. I was like, "What have I done?" And I remember calling my dad and going, "What did I do? I just quit my corporate job. What am I doing?" And I remember my dad having to talk me off the ledge because I'm thinking, what did I just do? So sheer panic, David, came in the first day of me getting up. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to go to work. Like, what have I just done? And so, and so that after that initial, you know, don't jump off the cliff, my dad's like, everything's going to be okay. You know, you've done this for a little bit. It was more about just social networking and you know, going to events. Like I would sometimes, if I would be at an event that I was not hired at, I would go to the event director and I'm like, look, I'm here. And if you need anything, if you need an extra judge, if you need an extra DJ, if you need an extra teacher, if you need somebody to help work registration, I'm here. I'm going to be here attending your event. Let me know if I can be of any help. And it worked out sometimes. Sometimes somebody would come up to me and go, oh my God, my teacher just has not shown up yet. You know, they missed their plane. Can you go teach their class? Or I'd be, you know, luckily for me, I love mornings. I'm a morning person. Some of my friends hate that because I literally do love mornings. I love getting up in the morning. I know, Kelly.
No, dude. No,
I am a morning person. I love
you, but I don't love that about you.
So I love nighttime and I love mornings. In the middle of the day, I could probably take naps, but I'm a morning person. I love mornings. And so I get up in the morning and I, you know, go downstairs and have coffee. And sometimes I see the event director panicking because their teacher overslept, right? And didn't get up. And they were like, oh my God, there's, you know, 100 people sitting in the ballroom and no teacher, you know? And I'm like, well, and they're like, can you go? And I'm like, all right, I'll go teach, right? And so Jessica and I would go and teach. So it's just being willing to jump in. So that had a huge impact of letting people know that I was there. And also just being nice to people, right? And also making the classes fun. Like I would always say at the end of my class, if you've enjoyed my class, you know, or mine and Jessica. Well, at first I started teaching by myself before Jessica kind of came along because Jessica had a different partner before me. And then, so she had her own career then. So I was kind of like establishing a solo career as just John Lindo. And so I'd be like, you know, if you like my classes, I'm John Lindo. If you don't like me, you know, I'm Robert Royston, right? I used to always give like my, you know, and so people would go to the event director and go, look, I took this class from John, this guy, he was great, he was fun. And so it was just word of mouth. And I remember one time I was home and I got a phone call. This is before like email was really big and, you know, texting. And I got this phone call from this event director in California. And he's like, who are you? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, He goes, I've had students come back and say, I got to hire you for my event. I don't know who you are. Who are you? And I'm like, and so, you know, and back then YouTube wasn't really huge then, you know, it was just kind of
right.
starting. And so, yeah, they would, you know, it's just word of mouth, right? And, you know, being nice goes a long way, right? Being nice to people goes a long way. Having fun in your classes. I'll tell you a quick little story. I remember one time I sent one of my students to another instructor's class. And I kind of knew this instructor was a little rough because, you know, that's who they are. But my student came out and said, don't ever give me advice again. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, if I wanted to be yelled at during the class, I would go home and get yelled at by my parents. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, all they did was yell at us. Like we weren't doing it right. We didn't do this and all. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, treating people with a little respect, and people are there to learn in a good environment. And when you're yelling at them and screaming at them, people feel like I'm paying this, like I can take that money and go to therapy instead. Right. So yeah, so so that transition happened where you're right. When I first quit my AT&T, when I took the package, it wasn't like that weekend I was going to an event, right? It was still, and also back then, we as a community in West Coast Swing didn't have the abundance of events that we have now, right? I mean, back then, maybe there was 20 to 30 events throughout the year, right? Maybe. Now we have 182, where we have 182 events on our calendar. So now there's an abundance of events. Like summer weekends, there's 5 events going on. Where before, you know, if you had one event and you missed it, you had to wait 3 weeks for the next event. So, you know, as the community grew, I kind of grew with it. So I guess I could say I was in the right place at the right time to grow with the community, and to be part of it and to see it grow has been phenomenal. So, yeah. So that transition happened.
I understand you've got one of the best reputations as an event organizer and leader for how you treat and respect the instructors you hire.
Yes. Well, I run my event as a business. It's a business. And in a business, the first person that you take care of is your customers. So I am very customer focused, right? That's why I make sure that my people who come to my events, you know, we feed them, right? Because I'm Portuguese, I have to feed people. So, you know, there's food, right? But you also make sure that they're taken care of. And yes, you know, I will be the first one to tell you that when I have my staff meeting, and I think pretty much all my students and everybody knows this about me, you know, when I have my staff meetings, I literally tell my staff, I want you to be focused on customers. And this is why I bring you here, because I want you to make sure that those folks down there are having a good time. They come back, they're paying me so I can pay you, right? They're buying a weekend ticket, they're buying hotels, they're buying airfares. And then I always end with this little joke, but not so much of a joke, because I say, you know, there's one bitch in this event, and that bitch is me. No one else gets to be in charge of the event. So it's this, right? You show up on time, you don't show up intoxicated, you don't show up high, because if you do, I'm going to fire you, right? Because if I showed up at AT&T with alcohol in my breath for my staff meeting, my boss would be like, you're out of here.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so I run my event very professionally, because I treat the professionals very well, right? Because I also know how it is to be a professional and show up to an event and not know what's going on. So for me, when my professionals show up, I greet them at the door. I have their room cards ready. I have their schedule in my hand. So they know what's expected of them, right? And I know what's expected. And so they know what's expected of me. And same thing with my customers. So yeah, I run it like a very efficient machine. Now, I'll say this because I also have an amazing team behind me. So people go, how do you run Liberty so well? And it's not me that runs Liberty. It's actually my team, right? It's everybody from registration to the teachers, to the judges, to the staff coordinators, right? They actually run the event. And, you know, without them, there would be no Liberty. So I'm just the pretty face of Liberty. They actually, you know, but, you know, there does have to be a captain, right? I've been to events where I'll ask a question to the event director and they go, well, I don't know. What do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. This is your event. Like, What do you want? They're like, well, I don't know. What do you think? I'm like, it's not my event. It's like, so I've
Yeah.
been to those types of events. So yeah,
You're more than just a pretty face, John.
thanks,
It's
David.
the whole package.
It's the whole package. Yes. Yeah. And, you know, and also just walking around with a smile on your face, greeting people, thanking them for coming. I remember my very first country and Western event I went to, the event directors came up to me and said, thank you for coming. And they didn't even know who I was. I was a nobody. Just started dancing. But that made such a huge impact on in me that I'm like, my God, if I ever run my own event, I'm going to make sure I do that. So now I just walk up to random strangers at the event. I'm like, hey, thank you for coming. Thanks for being here, right? Because that's my job, right? It's the event director to greet people. I've seen event directors running around with their hair on fire and, you know, because the world's coming to an end. So everybody knows that there's panic going on. But yeah, you just put out the fires. You have good people putting out the fires. And so, yeah. But yeah, but
that's actually like one of my first memories of you. We're at an event. I don't even know what it was because it was so long ago. I feel it's crazy how long I've known you.
Not that long.
Yeah, right.
Don't give me that.
But it was at an event, and you might have been a teacher. I think I just started finding out who you were, but I found out who you were after I met you. Like it was randomly dancing, and you and I just struck up a conversation, and I just enjoyed talking to you. I had no idea. Yeah, it was, and it was just awesome. So you do run your events like that. You do talk to everyone. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And I know, and I happen to be one of those event directors that I actually like people and I care about people.
Yeah.
So like, you know, at one of my events a couple of years ago, I was walking by this young lady and she seemed very upset and was almost in tears. So I stopped, right? Because that's what you do, right? Even as a human being, you stop. And I'm like, are you okay? Is everything okay? And I had just found out that, you know, she had walked into her boyfriend having, you know, conversations with another lady in their room. And so she was like all upset. And I was like, okay. I was like, what do we need to do to kind of help you? And she's like, well, I can't move to another room. There's no more rooms. And I'm like, we'll find you a room.
Yeah.
So I texted some friends. I'm like, who's got an extra bed in their room? And, you know, we moved her into the other room, you know, and I, you know, walked up to the gentleman who I happen to know as well. And I said to him, I said, she's staying, you're staying, don't talk to her. Cause if you do, I'm going to throw you out. So after the event, you can contact her and work out whatever things you guys got going on. But for now, let her be. So yeah, you have to be human, right? You have to just, for me, that's just part of who event directors should be, right? Event directors are not robots, right? They're running their events. They're taking money from customers to pay themselves and their staff. And without the customers, there's no event, right? One of the things, David, you mentioned about was you had met me at Stardust, right?
Yeah.
Like I love Stardust, right? I love Stardust because it brings together all the styles of dancer, right? I get to meet ballroom people. I get to meet salsa people. It's awesome, right? And people get to meet me from the West Coast Swing world, where when I go to West Coast Swing Convention, it's just West Coast, right? I don't meet anybody else. There's also another event in Europe called the Euro Dance Festival, and they actually cap their audience at 3,000 people. So no more than 3,000 can get in to this event. And it's ballroom, salsa, Latin. It is tango and West Coast and Lindy and bachata. And it's all these dances that come together, and it's amazing because you get to interact with all those people. And you get exposure. So more questions. I know we're getting.
You just gave me a thought, and I'm going to ask a question, then let Michelle and Kelly ask a few more. So you mentioned how you love Stardust because all these different styles of dance come together, but it's also an event that's really focused on social dancing, right? There's the little kind of fun impromptu competition, like show up in ballroom A in 20 minutes if you want to compete, but it's not a competition.
Right.
And it's, from what I've heard, I'm not so in tune with the West Coast world, but I think it's in the earlier days, it was very socially oriented. And you mentioned how there's now hundreds of events. And I've heard that for many people, the quality has changed because for a lot of people, it's about competing and gathering points and stuff. And I'm wondering what your view on that is.
Ooh, that's a good question, David. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for that.
You're welcome.
Thanks. So So yes, so when West Coast Swing first started, when I first came into this community, there was very few events with lots of social dancing, and maybe one or two competitions for fun, like you said, for fun. And it was all about the social dancing. You went out, you social danced, you took workshops, you competed a little bit, and then that was it. Um, and then the competition started taking over, and it did take over the events, because for a while there, the events would be nothing about what we call, we have an organization called the WSTC, which is the World West Coast Swing Dance Council, and it's an amazing organization. I belong to it. I put the points in for the council, so I'm a believer in the council. But part of me also knows that the council is part of our problem as being a competitive environment where we do a lot of competition. There are some events that are geared towards competing, where you go to an event and they have 40 contests throughout the weekend. So 40 contests throughout the weekend means that you're not getting any social dance. And like, some of the contests are ending at 2:00 in the morning, right? And so that's late for a contest to end. And so, yes, we have become very, very heavy on competition. There are some events that balance it really well, right? They offer just 7 contests and social dancing. And then there's very few events still around that offer just social dancing, right? Just social dancing workshops. And those contests, unfortunately, or I should say those events, are not as huge as the competition ones. Now, we as humans love to compete. Right? That's just human nature, right? We love sports. This is who we are as human beings. So I think because of that, a lot of people have seen that, oh, people love to compete, so let me put on an event. And so, yeah, there's been more events added on to the calendar because of the aspect of competing. And yeah, it has, I mean, I've said this on other interviews, so it's not like I'm going to get in trouble again. But it has killed the social aspect of dancing, where some people don't go to events because there's nothing but competition at it, David, right? There's hours and hours of sitting. Like, I remember a student one time, we went to this big event, and she came up to me and she touched me. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And she was like cold. Her hands were freezing. She's like, I've been sitting in this ballroom for 5 hours. And she goes, and there's not been any social dancing. And I was like, wow. So for 5 hours, she sat in that ballroom just watching competitions. Now, she was happy because, her friends were competing. She was cheering them on. But, at some point, you want to get up and dance, right? This is why you came to the event, was to dance. So yeah, our company now, we have some events, and there's several of us event directors in West Coast Swing who have gotten together, and we created a West Coast Swing event directors kind of a group. And we do talk about how do we balance, right? And we learn from each other. Like, how do we balance putting enough competitions that we get the competitors to come? And then also, how do we balance of having enough social dancing that we get the social dancers to come? Because in the end, we all have to be able to be together in the event to make it successful. You can't run an event with just competitors, right? And you can't run an event with just social dancers. That doesn't work. I mean, unless you want your event to be very small and you have a very small staff, it's great. But if you're talking something like a Mad Jam or Liberty or Boogie by the Bay or the US Open or Grand Nationals, right? Those are like huge events. Those events, you need both the competitors and the social dancers to come out. And so balancing is a good thing. So one of the things that we've done at Liberty is, we have a competition, but we make sure we leave time between the next competition when it ends and starts to have social dancing, right? So people know that there's social dancing in the ballroom during this time. And no one wants to go in the second ballroom downstairs and do social dancing when all their friends are up in the main ballroom. They all want to dance on the main ballroom, right? Even though a lot of us offer a secondary ballroom while the competitions are going on, no one is down there, right? Because they all want to be upstairs. So yeah, it's just a matter of balancing it. And on the council, I've actually, I've said to the council, we have to put a cap on not allowing more events to come on, because we haven't even gotten the Asian market yet. Like, once we get the Asian market to come online, right? Or, into the organization, that's going to be more events again. Now, the fact that there's a lot of events, I love because people get the exposure, right? I've had students who have gone to Paris to go dancing at an event, and then they got to experience Paris, right? So they now get to put their passion of traveling and dancing together rather than just going to their local dance. And of course, we've had a lot of international people come and travel, but now those international people don't travel so much to the United States because they have their own events in Europe, and it's easier to get across and cheaper than it is to fly to the United States. So it's just a balance of making sure that you've got the right stuff. But there are some event directors who don't care about the social aspect of the dance, right?
Right.
They just want competition because they see that as the future. And then there are some event directors who don't want competition, like the mere mentioning of competition at their event. They absolutely will not even have like Stardust has like the fun competition, David. They don't want any of that. They want no competition because they feel like there's this, black hole in there. And so, I play Switzerland. I'm Switzerland when it comes to, because I sit in the middle, right? Because as an event director brain, I want the competitors to come because I love the social aspect of it and the competition aspect of it. But also as just a social dancer, I want the social dancers to come because I want them to have a good time, but I also want them to see the awesome competition. So for me, I sit in the middle, and I love both, and I go back and forth depending on what day and what color underwear I have on.
You know what? I want to jump in because I want to throw you under the bus a little bit.
Oh, no! I already went under the bus with David.
Come on! So, you had this great spiel just now, which is wonderful, about events. Yes. I am very interested in, and you can only answer one of these ideas if you want, but what is an event that has really made an impact on you? And not necessarily as an event director or as just something that's either has made an event on you from the past or a current favorite event of yours.
Okay.
And I realize the position you're in to be political, but I also know who you are, and I'm very excited that I'm going to get a real answer from you.
Yes. So the event that has made the most impact on me has been Boogie by the Bay. And Boogie by the Bay, because the event director that runs it, he's an amazing, Andy Bowman, he's the shit, right? When it comes to event directors, he's amazing. Like I try to make sure that I look like him, right? He runs his events on time. He goes around, welcomes people. It's also in California, right? Which I had never been to California. So for me, my first time in California was like, whoa, this is awesome. And people were friendly. They came up to me, they asked me to dance. And I was like, I got to move to California. Like, this is amazing. And they were amazing dancers. And putting that into perspective, I was like, oh, I guess they should be, right? Because in California, especially in the Bay Area, they have 7 or 6 dances a week that you go dancing. When I lived in New York, we had 1 dance a week. It was Tuesday night. And if you miss Tuesday night, you have to wait for the next Tuesday to kind of go dancing. And, in the Bay Area, you could go dance 6 nights a week. So, your chances of getting better and becoming an amazing dancer were much better because you got much more practice. And for those people that I know, Michelle, you're going to back me up on this. Practice does matter. Practice does matter. You can't just be like, boom. Like people usually come to me and say, I want you to make me great. I'm like, great, let me get my magic wand.
Yeah, I know. I have one of those too.
And there you go. You are now an amazing dancer. No, you got to practice. Jordan, Michael Jordan to become Michael Jordan just by throwing 1 3, right? Tiger Woods didn't swing 1 time and become Tiger Woods. You got to practice. So they got a lot more practice. So for me, the biggest event I'd have to say on the West Coast that had the impact would be Boogie by the Bay. Now, having said that, there's also an event called Summer Hummer in the East Coast that's run by Bill Cameron, who's also one of my best friends who I love. And his event was about the party aspect of it. And so for me, I was like, oh my God, this is like an amazing party. Like he knows how to throw a party. There's a pool party, there's limbo contest, there's, everything. And I'm like, how do I incorporate that into my events? And so those 2 events for me kind of stand out as my big, wow, model myself after. Now, to answer your second question, the favorite event now that I have would be the Euro Dance Festival.
Okay.
And because, like I said, it brings so many aspects of every dance. Like when Jessica and I were there, as staff members, we get to take unlimited classes. So when we're not teaching, we'll go take a Kazumba class. Now, I have never taken Kazumba, but I walked in and I'm like, I think I'm in love with this dance, right? I'm in love with this music. I'm in love with this dance, right? Or we'll go take a tango. We went to take Argentine tango. I'm like, we're going to take tango. And so I love that aspect of it because the Euro Dance Festival, every hour, and I think I'm probably undernumbered this, but every hour there is about 25 classes that you can take every hour and every
That's
day.
insane.
It's insane, right? It's insane. 25 classes, and it's probably more than that, but I'm just thinking 25. Because I remember I look at the calendar and I'm like, which one are we going to go to? Every hour, and they bring the top professionals from every area of ballroom, both standard and Latin, to tango, to West Coast, to East Coast, to Lindy. They even have, salsa, they've got bachata, they've got kazumba, they've had zouk for a while. Yeah, it is literally insane. And it's held at the Euro Disney Park, which is close because it's in February. So we have access to the entire park, which means we have all the hotels, and the trolley runs just for the dancers.
Oh,
and
wow.
just like every other event there, right? Or I should say that event, David, there's no competition. There's absolutely no competition. It is just workshops all day and breaks. And then they have a show at night that all the professionals do their shows, like Michael and Michelle. They'll come in, they'll do their show, and then they leave. And every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday, there. And this is a 2-week camp. It's 2 weeks. It runs 2 weeks. So it's amazing. So like you may go for a first week or the second week, but it's amazing. And so that's my favorite event because you get to experience, even just when Jessica and I walk around. So like, and we'll see the progression of this is how come funny it is, because like 8 o'clock, all the ballrooms are filled, right? And each ballroom is, separate. So all the ballrooms are filled. By 10 o'clock, the ballroom people have all gone to bed.
Yep.
They've all gone to bed. And then you've got the tango people left and the salsa people and the West Coast swing people. And then by like 11, 12 o'clock, the tango people have gone to bed and maybe, some of the other dancers have gone. But then it's a fight between the West Coast and the salsa people to see who can stay up the latest. And of course, we always make sure that we win. But yeah, it's like the two rooms are kind of side by side. You walk across the hall from another, and it's just amazing. And it has the best social dancing and the best instructors. So yeah, I've actually had students who I've said, you got to go to your dance festival, even if you're not, wanting to dip your toe in another dance. Like I remember Jessica and I and some other instructors, we went to take a rumba class. We're thinking we're going to do rumba because, it's a sexy dance. Let's go. So we went to take a rumba class, and the instructor, by the way, half of the classes are all in German because, it's in Germany. I should have said that. It's right outside Frankfurt. It's in Germany. And, we get to the class and they're speaking German and we're like, we're in trouble. We're in trouble because there's no translators. So, but we're like, we'll just watch and we'll do it. Well, the first thing that instructor has to do is everybody just goes down on their knees, and we did nothing but arm work. The entire hour was nothing but arm work. And we could follow it because we just kind of watched her. And it was funny because then in the staff room, she came over and said, oh, I saw you guys in my class. I should have talked English. We're like, we're okay. We didn't understand a word you were saying, but we could follow what you were doing, and it was great. But just to think about taking a whole hour on rumba technique was amazing, right? And so that's the kind of thing that they do. So that's probably, I have to say, if I have to tell people to go to one event, other than mine, of course, would be to go to the Euro Dance Festival because it is just an amazing experience.
Nice. So I've got another question from our audience.
Oh boy.
You've got this incredible reputation as I would say a world-class leader because you've won so many Jack and Jill events, right? Mm-hmm. And so the question is, they'd like to hear from you what qualities you think make a great follower.
What qualities make a great follower? I think, speaking for myself, right, a great follower for me is somebody that is willing to go on the journey with you, right? But as they're going on the journey, to add input, right? When I dance with, Tatiana, Sarah, Brandy, Jessica, any of the top girls and the West Coast, Deborah, right? They come on the journey, but they also add their own element, right? And they add their own thing, and you pick up on it. The other side of that is you have some followers, and I won't name them because I'm being politically correct. Kelly, I'm not going to name any names. You have some followers that when you get them, they have their own agenda. They have their own agenda, and this is what they're sticking to, and they don't bring character. They don't bring character for anybody, and this is who they are, and you can go along with them. Don't add anything because it's them, it's who they are. And then you've got people like, Tori Smith-Zowie, that when I get her in a Jack and Jill, we look at each other and we both always say to this, we go, good luck. Like, just as a fun thing, because we know we're going to have fun. Right. And so, yeah, I think a good example of a good follower character is for them to be able to adapt, right? Be able to add their own style, but not take away from the leaders, but then be able to add it, but then also bring something where if they see that the leader's struggling, they kind of help them out.
Nice.
Yeah, and it ends up playing off of each other, and you can see that when you're watching a really good Heat and a Jack and Jill. It's like, there's that interactivity that's there's a conversation happening, and it's so enjoyable.
You could totally see whether there's a conversation going on, Michelle, or whether there's a screaming match.
Yep.
Like sometimes I want to go. I actually done this one time where we were at an event, and the two people who drew each other had just split up.
Oh.
And then, that happens. So what happens when you date in the same community that you work in? You're bound to see each other. Like when they split up, I said to my friend, I'm like, did you not think you were going to see him again? I'm like, what are you thinking? So when they danced, it was so uncomfortable. Like the whole audience could feel it. Yeah. Us as champions sitting in the back, we could tense it. It was so tense that I got up because, we normally get 2 songs. I got up in the middle of the first song, and I kind of went up and I split them apart. And I was like, all right, go. Like it was a fight. And the whole audience just broke out into laughter because we knew it was a fight. And I'm like, okay, go to your corners and fight. And it was like, it was needed because everybody was just so tense about, oh my God, what's going to happen? And they kind of like chuckled. And during the second song, it was a little bit more cordial. But I also wanted to let them know, not only are we seeing it, but everybody else is seeing it. And so you need to be aware of this. Because I think they were just in their own heads that they were not aware of it. Yeah. So yeah, you could totally, you're right, Michelle. You can see when there's a beautiful conversation going on or a screaming match.
And you can feel it, right? That's something that is
because you're right there. I mean, you're so close to each other.
Oh, yeah.
So close. And it's like, oh, yeah. But yeah, it happens.
Okay, thanks for that answer.
John, I will say this. I normally, I teach following and I learn to follow, but it's never my preference. I'm always I just like to be lead. And it's not because I need to be in control. It's because I barely have to figure out what the heck I'm doing, right? So them to take you into account. But every time I see you, you don't even ask. You just grab me and you lead me. You're like one of the very few people in this world who gets away with that. And for whatever it's worth, I lose my mind when I dance with you. And I'm like, I try to pull out any stop, any idea I've ever had about following. And you are just so graceful with okay, let's see what kind of shit Kelly's going to do. Yeah, right? You're always like, oh, handstand. I didn't know you could even do that. I don't know what it is about you, but.
Yeah. Well, I love leading, right? I mean, I follow as well, but I love leading. And I like to take male professionals and put them on a ride. I'm like, let's go, let's have fun. And because, of my statuesque body type that I am, they trust me because they know I'm not going to let them fall. Right. I can hold on to them. I mean, I remember one of the first times I danced with Benji, he went for a dip and I grabbed him and he looked at me, he goes, "Oh my God, you caught me." And I'm like, "What, do you want me to let you fall? I mean, I'll let you fall if you want me to." But, it's that trust factor, that, they know that if they do something crazy that, could potentially put them on the ground, I'm going to catch them. I'm going to be there. It's the same reason why I love to, like when I dance with Robert Royston, and I have to say this, I don't go easy on you guys. I don't baby you just because, you're a male.
You
and
don't
you
even
may
give a
not follow.
basic. You're
I'm like,
immediately in.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I said to Robert, I'm like, right now you're Tatiana, so just go. Like channel Tatiana moment and let's go, because bring it. Like I want you to challenge me, and I challenge them. But I love to lead. I mean, I also have fun when I'm following. I'm a little bit more cautious because I will not end up on the ground. That's just a rule of mine that I have commonly, that I don't like to clean. Like somebody said to me one time, "Why don't you like being on the ground?" I'm like, "Because I don't like to clean the floors." Right? This suit costs too much money. I'm not going to roll on the floor and clean the dance floor for somebody by rolling on. But that's just me, right? I like to stay above. That's why I have two legs. I like to stand up. So yes.
I don't know if you guys have any other questions, but I will talk to John all day. John, I want to get your thought on this.
Uh-oh.
First of all, you've done so many things on setting the bar. Just you yourself set such a high bar. But there's little things that I'm wondering if you're aware of how much of a bar you set. Like, first of all, talking about Jack and Jill's, the John Invitational. Like that, you've set a bar with that, and you've been doing it for quite a while now. Like, was that a conscious thing? Was that just a fun thing you decided to start? Like tell us a little bit about that.
So
maybe start by explaining what a John Invitational is.
Okay. So in our community, we have what we call invitationals. An invitational is when an event director invites generally the pros that are on staff to dance in the Jack and Jill. But not every pro gets invited, and sometimes, it's an invitational. So you could invite your mother if you wanted to, right? That's why it's called an invitational. But how our invitational started was there used to be a contest in an event called the Phoenix 4th of July. And what they would do is they would send out ballots to the top professionals, and you would vote for your top 10. So if I was a leader, I got a ballot to vote for my top 10 followers. And then whoever got the most votes gets invited to that contest, or used to get invited. That contest not really exists anymore. But that's how our invitationals kind of started in the West Coast Swing community. That's a little bit of the history. So the John Invitational came about, or where John Invitational is that I was like, okay, this is my event, and I want to see people dance who I want to see. Like, I don't want to leave it up to the chance of you grabbing it out of the bucket. Like, I want to see people dance that I want to see because I know they're going to put on a good show. And so the concept of the John Invitational actually started at a dinner party that I had with some friends, and we were talking, and I said, I wish I could just pick who I want to dance, but make it fun. And so that's how the John Invitational got created. Now, the first year I ran the John Invitational, I got in trouble by the WSCC. I got a slap on my hand, and I got a fine. Oh. And I was a big boy. I put on my pants. I knew I was breaking the rules, right? Because we don't get to pick who we want. That's why it's called the Jack and Jill. You get to do it. But then I came back, got together with some really good friends of mine who are lawyers and who are people who like to debate. And we got a petition. We put it together and we sent it to the World Swing Council saying, look, it's an invitational. I get to invite who I want. So I should also get to pick who I want to dance. And so after a while of going back and forth, they said, okay, you can run the John Invitational. And so now what happens is that I have fun with the John Invitational because I am the MC. So usually I have somewhat of a plan, but it really is based on audience participation. I think that's why the audience loves it. And I think that's why it's become such a huge huge factor because
Yeah,
what I'll
there's
do is
interactivity there that's really
yes,
engaging.
yeah.
That's fun.
I look to them to help. Now I think I know what's going on, and I have a plan in my head, and I kind of know who I'm going to pair what with who, but that never happens because the audience always changes my mind. And so, like, just to give you an example, one of the contests was, I said, okay, now who goes in order? I let the system do that, right? So all the leaders draw their cards. So therefore, I know who's going to go in order, right? So that I kind of have to, I have to play fairness here, and I can't run the entire thing my way, right? Although I would like to, right? You go first, you go last, right? I like you better than you. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I think you're going to do an awesome job with this person, so you're going to go last to bring the house down.
So just to be clear, when John was pointing at the camera and he said, "I like you more and I like you less," I think the first one was me and the second one was you, Kelly. Just to be clear.
David, I believe
right
so.
right on. Yes, and then I said, "I like you." I pointed with 2 fingers to Michelle. So she gets 2 fingers, get 1.
I'm the only female on the panel. I have to have a little bit of power there, right?
Exactly. You have all the power, trust me.
So here's the deal. I just want to throw this out there because I could literally just go make a cup of coffee and sit here with you all day long, John, because as you know, Kelly and David, it's just so easy and enlightening to have great conversation with you. I would love to see if we could invite you to come back for a second interview, but also maybe when the world gets back to a certain level of normality, right? Where we have this sort of, maybe we're dancing again, maybe events have, started to resurface and we get to be part of that world. It's going to be changed for a while. And it would just really be nice to recap that on a competition, a social perspective, a teacher, a workshop, training, coaching, everything that's going on, and just another great update of what's going on. So maybe we could plan that before even the year's out and just see where we're at.
Yeah, I'd
that
love
would
to.
be fantastic.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So just to finish the thing about the John Invitational. So
yes.
So I called Jordan Frisbee. He comes up, and now I'm thinking, who am I going to get him to pick? And I look over at the panel of the followers, and Jennifer DeLuca just looks at me and hides her face. In school when you're about to get called and you don't want to.
Yeah.
And so I go, Jennifer DeLuca, and she was, and I'm like, because you like, it's based on the reaction of the audience and what the panel is doing. So that's what the John Invitational is. It is that I get to pick who dances with who, and then I also make them do a little something. So like the first song this past year, not this year, but last year, was they got a song of a rhythm. So it was either samba, bachata, cha-cha, and they have to dance that dance for 25, 30 seconds. And it's hysterical to watch Ben Morris do cha-cha and break on 2. It's hysterical. Because a lot of them are not, but then it's also fun to watch Robert Royston get Paso Doble and just kill it in the Paso Doble, right? Where he goes and grabs a tablecloth from a table and pretends that he's got the cape. I mean, it's amazing. So I always have 2 songs. The first song, like 2 years ago, they had to act out the words to the song. So if the song said, I'm looking at the at the sunset, they have to, create that. They have to tell the audience what the song is doing, and they have to do it with their body. And then, of course, the second song is the swing song where they actually have to dance. And they're primarily judged on that, but some of their score does come from the first song. And so that's what the John Invitational is. It's funny because the audience gets to see the top professionals that they admire out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, watching Jordan Frisbee, the #1 West Coast swing dancer in the world, do, samba is hysterical, right? And just, it's funny. But then, it's so people get, oh my God, he's human. Like he doesn't mind making fun. And I always tell the pros that are going to be invited, my last line in the letter that they get is always like, I completely understand if you don't want to be part of this. Like if you don't want to let yourself be seen funny, that you're having a good time, or you don't want to cause damage to your image. I don't know how that's going to cause damage, but it's okay. And I have had some professionals who say, I would rather not dance because I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm like, I'm all cool with that. Like I'm fine. right? It's fine. But yeah, so that's what the John Invitational is.
And we can, I mean, I've looked at it on YouTube too. So if the listeners are listening and this is your first introduction to the amazing world of the John Invitational, I implore you, go on YouTube and go down that rabbit hole of all of the amazing videos, and you're going to lose days watching them. It's amazing.
It's fun. Yeah. I mean, so sometimes when I need a good laugh, I'll go watch some of them, especially from the last year where they had to do all the rhythm dances. It's quite funny. It's hysterical. But yes, that's what the John Invitational is.
That's on my to-do list for this afternoon.
Yeah, we actually have a Liberty Swing channel on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube, look up Liberty Swing, and it's there, and it's got all the competitions and all the John Invitationals on that channel.
So actually, just to that point, I'll be sure to put a link to both of those in our show notes. Is there another site where people can find out about you or how to contact you, John?
Sure. So johnlindo.com. I have my own website. It's got my calendar on there, although the calendar looks empty right now. It says,
I feel like you should put
home.
Yeah, I feel like you should put like walk the cat in randomly and like make sure people are
walking the cat, feeding the birds, doing this, feeding the fish, doing something. But yeah, so johnlindo.com. It's my calendar. It's my contact form. It's got my DVDs on there. It's got my bio pictures of me and Jessica, a bunch of stuff. So yeah, you can go. Nice. Anything you ever want to find out about me, if you're a stalker, go there. It'll enable you to do that.
Okay, excellent. John, thank you so much for coming and spending a wonderful time with us.
I can't believe it's over already.
Hold on.
Oh,
it is not over.
It's not over. We're going to hold you to what Michelle was suggesting earlier, and we definitely would love to have you come back.
Yes.
If you can stand spending more time with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have one more thing before we go, and you will be back, John. We are going to stalk you as a group. Okay, are you aware that there is currently a drinking game for your Jack and Jills?
What?
Like you personally, you dancing in a Jack and Jill, your amazing high level, there is currently a drinking game, a John Lindo drinking game. Are you aware of this?
I am not aware of it, and I'm very scared right now.
So I'm not going to give you too many details because I do not want to influence the rules of the game because I don't want to put that seed in your head.
But what are the rules of the game?
So the rules of the game are just any drinking game. Think of a drinking game, right? Like if somebody does this, take a shot. If somebody does this, take a drink, right?
Okay.
I mean, so it's in every sense of the drinking game, those are the rules.
Okay.
But you are very unique, and you have your own voice when you dance. So there are certain things that you do, and I'll do one that's not going to give anything away.
Tell me.
You can be the best leader in the world, but there are times when it's time to diva, nobody can keep up with you. Right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, whatever. So that's one, right? So anytime it's time to diva out, and you hit your diva stance and you go for it.
My diva stance is AKA Tina Sparkles from Strictly Ballroom. Yeah. That's my diva. Tina Sparkles pops into my head, and I go, Tina Sparkles.
Beautiful. I love it. But that's like so.
I did not know that there was a drinking game. Oh Lord, now I gotta investigate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting when you ask about it because I don't think anyone thinks you know about it. And so here
I don't know about it. This is the first time. You're breaking news to me, Kelly.
There's been many of events where we're like on a break before dinner, before social dancing. You're hanging out with some friends and they're like, hey, let's throw up YouTube. Let's do the drinking game. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. Like it's kind of a cult classic.
All right.
John Lindo drinking game.
Oh, boy. I mean, I guess there are a few moments that I do. I don't know. I guess sometimes in the Jack and Jills, I do turn it up a little bit. So I can see that.
A little bit.
Just a little bit, Michelle. So I guess I can see where they go, is he going to do this? I mean, there was one event where I stopped the music. Because, I'm a DJ. So, they said, would you like a slow song or a fast song? And I said, slow. And the DJ played the song, and it was fast. So I stopped. I think I'm the only person who's ever done that. I stopped the contest, and I said, excuse me, I want a slow song. And everybody's just like, did he just stop the contest? I'm like, yes, you said slow or fast. I want slow. That's not slow.
Perfect.
So, but there is a little bit of Tina Sparkle. I'm starting to see how the game could be played now. My wheels are turning. But yeah, I would love to come back and chat with you guys. I can't believe this time has gone like this. It's so quick.
It flies by. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you for having me. You guys, I have to.
My cheeks are sore just from laughing and smiling with you. So thank you.
I have to say, this is awesome that you guys do this. This is great. I love that you guys bring pros in and you talk to them, and it keeps people engaged. And so thank you for doing this in this time. And hopefully you'll continue to do it, even though, you know, like you said, Michelle, let's hope things get back to normal. But when they do, keep doing it, because I think it's awesome. I think people love this because it gets to, like, it shows a part of me to people that have never known me, or, you know, you get to ask some personal questions, which is great. And it gets to kind of like those interviews. So I think that's awesome for the community. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, shameless little plug, and I'm going to hold you to it now while you're on camera. When the world gets back spinning again, right, and you start having your events, we'll all come to it, and we'll have a little Talk.dance at your events. That'll be great.
That'll be awesome. Yes, I'll set that up. Absolutely. Not a problem.
Perfect.
Okay.
We'll be there.
We're on.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.